In English, it's a good idea to ask someone their opinion before you give your own. Because who knows, they might agree with you, but they might vehemently disagree. So here are 3 of the most common phrases for asking someone's opinion, but we're going to focus on pronunciation, intonation, word stress, and sentence stress, and pay particular attention to phrase number 3. So phrase number 1, what do you think of? What do you think of? So if we start with the W, which is pronounced with 2 lips rounding, w, w, w. Don't pronounce a G at the beginning. A lot of Catalonian speakers do this. So it's not gua, gua, guat, guat, but it's what, yeah? A lot of Indian speakers tend to pronounce this with a bit more of a V. So it's not what, va, 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 but w, w, what, and then the lips release. But they keep rounded into the O sound, wa, wa, and then the tip of the tongue comes up for a T, what, what. But in this context, when we say, what do you think of, what do you think of, because the next word begins with a D, we don't have to say the T sound at the end of what. And it's very common to hear, what do you, what now, I'm not glottalizing that T. I've made a video about glottalizing, which you might want to check out. But instead, I'm bringing my tongue up to make the T. I just don't release it as a T. I release it as a D. What do you think? What do you think? It's called assimilation. And I've made another video about assimilation, which you might want to check out. That it's what do you? So the word do, as well as the word you actually, can be pronounced as weak forms, which means that the vowel in do and you can be pronounced as a schwa. Wait. If you're thinking of leaving, I've got some great free resources that I'd love you to steal to help you with your pronunciation in English. So click this link and it'll take you to my website, and it's all free. Just enter your email address and you can download those and really start working on your pronunciation. Anyway, if you have to go, I'll see you soon. Simply because they're not very important words. You know, what and think are quite important in this phrase. So dear can be pronounced like that. Dear. Some people say do you, so they just make the do into a d, and then you has a long oo vowel with rounded lips. But a lot of people would say, what do you think? What do you think? Yeah. So the D is like the T is made with the tip of the tongue on the alveolar ridge, yeah, pointing up, d, and then y, it's called a yod, where the tongue is high and then it drops, y, and as I said, it can either be y or you, with the lips round. What do you, or what do you? Either one is fine. And then the tip of the tongue comes either just between the teeth or just behind the back of the top teeth to make a TH, which I've talked about many times. This is a voiceless TH, so it's made with no sound. It's just air, just breath. Don't press the tongue into the teeth, otherwise it'll sound more like a T. It's just breath, very lightly, yeah? It's not an F. Don't make that mistake. It's not think. And it's not an S. It's not sink, yeah, which some accents tend to do. But it's think. And then we get a short little I vowel, not think, which is a long E, just a short little I. And this is weird, right? Because I know it's written as NK, but we actually make the sound NG. You do this, no doubt you do this. A lot of people do this, and it's completely fine. So it may just be weird to notice that the back of the tongue raises up, and then we make a K where the back of the tongue drops away. Think. So it's almost like the word thing, THING, with a K on the end. Think. It's weird, isn't it? Think of. Now we don't say of, right? A lot of people would just say of, and that F is a V. I know, it's weird. And make sure you do that, because otherwise it'll sound like O double F. If you say, what do you think of? Yeah, it'll sound like a different word. So what do you think of? And here, of can be pronounced as a weak form, which means that it can be pronounced as a schwa. So not of with a V, but of. What do you think of? What do you think of? Phrase number 2. How do you feel about? How do you feel about? So how begins with a soft H. It's not strong. Back of the tongue is low. It's just a little bit of breath. Not. Which a lot of accents in Arabic tend to do, but it's. Yeah. How. Yeah. How. That's a diphthong. So we start with an a, ha, and then the lips round. How, dear. So this is called a contraction. So it's a combination of two words, do and you, but it's contracted so that the O in do is completely elided. So we don't get do you or even do ya, but just dear. So we release straight from a D into what's called a yod, dear, which I talked about in the previous previous phrase. Dear. How dear, which is a schwa. How do you feel? How do you feel about? How do you feel about? So the F in feel is pronounced with the lower lip touching the upper teeth. How do you feel? And the F is voiceless, there's no vibration. Feel. Then we get the long vowel E. Feel. Now, this L, if it's on its own in this word, would be a dark L where the back of the tongue is high. All. Feel. But because it's followed by a word beginning with another vowel, it's actually a light L. Too much information to go into right now, but the back of the tongue is low. Feel. So it's a nice forward, bright, light sort of L. Not all, which a lot of Russian speakers do. All feel, but feel about. Now, about starts with a schwa. Feel. And then we get a B, two lips come together. B. And then we get another ow diphthong, which we had in the word how. How about, can you hear that? It's the same thing. It's not a bolt with the jaw really drops, a bolt, and lips stay completely neutral, a bolt, but about, and then tip of the tongue comes up for a T. How do you feel about? And the last one, what would you say if I? So we've got the word what, which we've already talked about, what. And then we get the word would. Now, just before we talk about that, there's something interesting that happens with many native speakers in the UK when a T at the end of one word is followed by a W at the beginning of the next word. A lot of speakers would glottalize that T at the end of what. Yeah? So they wouldn't say, what would you say if I? What would you say if I? A lot of people would say, what would you say if I? What would you say if I? No, I'm not saying it's correct to glottalize, but it is a very common thing. You'll hear most people doing it in the UK. So it's what would you, and a glottal is made, I made a video about this, but a glottal is made with your vocal folds coming together. What, everything in the mouth stays open. What would you, then we get the word would, which is made again with a W at the beginning, like in what, would. Now the lips stay there in a rounded position. Would. Sounds like W-O-O-D. They're the same pronunciation. They're called homophones, where they rhyme with one another. Would. And the tip of the tongue comes up for a D. Would. What would you? Then we get a yod for the sound you, for the word you. What would you say? You. We've already talked about this, so I won't spend any time here. But again, it could be you, could be ya. What would you? What would you say? What would you say? Either one is fine. Say begins with an S, as you well know. An S is really tricky. I think most people can pronounce this pretty well. It's voiceless, so there's no vibration. It's not a Z. It's not zay, zay, but it's say, say. I'm going to leave the S for now, but it's made with the tongue, sort of blade of the tongue rising into the front of the mouth, approximating with the gum ridge. Say, say. Then we get the diphthong A, which is made with spread lips, A, and then the tongue rises a little higher, A, and we get the E vowel, say, say if I, say if I. Now we get a little intrusive yod in between say and if. And that's because say ends with a vowel, if begins with a vowel, say if, and we use a consonant, that little yod, to smooth that transition between those words. It'll really help with fluency. Say if, can you hear that little y? A lot of people do this naturally, but I'm just saying. Say if I, say if, and then the lower lip comes up for the consonant F. Say if, and that little short vowel I just before it. Say if I, and then we get this lovely open sound, which is a diphthong I, where we start with a vowel that's very much like R, a little bit shorter, I, and then the tongue comes up and the lips spread. I, what would you say if I, what would you say if I... So I hope you found that useful, and if you're new to this channel, then why don't you subscribe, because I post weekly videos here every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. GMT local London time, and the co-founder of English Pronunciation Roadmap, Paul, he posts the word of the week every Sunday, so why don't you subscribe in order to get 2 videos about English pronunciation, British English pronunciation, every week, completely free. If you found this video useful and you want to find it again, why don't you hit like? And why don't you share this video with someone who is like-minded and might find it helpful? And I very much hope to see you here next week.